Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz. What's Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's me, Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service and sometimes some consulting. I learned all about that and the magic word culture from the hand of the master, my late father, Joe O'Malia, from the O'Malia Food Markets days. But even before that, when my dad had a little store in Broad Ripple, where the Vanguard Bar is now, that he lost and came back 10 years later and successfully started O'Malia Food Market. So one of my lessons was never, ever, ever give up. If you're interested in my customer service training, keynoting, or consulting, give me a call at 317-413-9062. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz? I like to describe it as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And today, my guest is good friend, fellow Rotarian, recent former president of the Indianapolis Rotary, and also he's here to talk about his line of work these days, which is the Indianapolis Ballet. Don Steffy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much.
Good to have you. So tell the folks about Don Steffy, a quick life story here.
I see. Okay, well we won't add years to this life story, but I hail from Canton, Ohio.
Home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I saw that being built when I was in high school.
Okay.
And it was a great thing for the city and is now. In fact, a little known fact that in our high school, as opposed to Indianapolis that has football stadiums in every township school, we only had one football stadium.
And it's a big one.
It's a big one. And our 4 high schools served that stadium, and that is the stadium where the Pro Football Hall of Fame game is played.
Did you go to Canton McKinley?
No, I went to Canton Lehman.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Canton Lehman, Canton McKinley, Canton Timpkin, and Canton Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And they all had their sort of their own purposes. One was a technical school. Timpkin was a technical school at the time.
What was your school's?
So my school and Lincoln were more liberal arts.
Okay.
And if I might, it really is an interesting. At that time, in our community, we had a large Jewish population in our city, large, and we were actually the public high school that served that Jewish population.
Okay.
So we had a really great mix of students in our student body, and in certain holidays, half of the English class wasn't there.
Okay.
Well, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So it was, and yet certain holidays, people came in with ashes on their forehead, and you knew exactly.
So everybody got along okay.
Everybody got along
Very good.
marvelously.
Very good.
So, anyways, that's where I went, and ironically, my wife and I, we both went to Canton Lehman.
You met there.
We indirectly met there. I met her after I graduated, a year after I graduated, and she was one class behind me. But I knew who she was. She knew who I was. But short story is, which leads us into this career. So I started as a child actor, and that was going to be my path, my only path.
Did you want to go to Broadway?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to that because I've been there.
Okay.
Yay. But anyhow, then my training in college was all theater. But then when I met my wife, which ironically was because I was in a musical, and I always was a person who could dance just naturally, okay, not trained. So I was always thrown into whatever musical it was and could perform that way. But the choreographer of this particular musical was her ballet teacher.
Okay, this was after high school, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was after high school for me.
Yeah.
It was her senior year. And so...
now, where'd you go to college?
I went to college first at Bowling Green State University.
He's a Falcon.
Yes. And that was a wonderful experience. I actually was sort of like a basketball player on scholarship. At that time, they had 6 scholarships available for actors. So one of the requirements was to audition for every play. I was planning on doing that anyway.
Well, very good.
But it strengthened the theater department to have a certain level of quality. on stage, and never saw a bill from the university. So it was
hats off to you,
right?
And I'm sure your parents felt
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
Right?
They said, "Oh yeah, we support your career now." But anyhow, ironically, this lady asked me if I would dance in this particular ballet. I said, "I've never done ballet." She said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to hold this girl up all the time." And I said, well, who is it? And then she said who she was. Well, there's a date in there somewhere, so I agreed. And not only was there a date, but 2 years later we were married. So
that was the girl.
That was the girl.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That was the girl. And so, but I also made then a right-hand turn, still in the arts. I've been in the arts my whole life, to say, you know what? My wife, Mary Lou, she was gung-ho to support my acting career. And I said, you know, a ballet dancer has really a short life like an athlete.
Maybe
right?
even shorter.
Maybe even shorter.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know, Mary Lou, I would hate for you to be in your late 20s and wish you had pursued. So why don't I try to pursue this with you? Of course, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But ironically, through a lot of work, a lot of hard work, and you know, diligence, my wife and I shared a classical ballet career together for almost 20 years.
Neat. That's great.
So it's,
and you were able to make a living doing that.
We were.
Okay.
We were,
okay.
Absolutely. And just had a grand time. And then I got into arts management because I took a job. I won't go too much into this, Danny, but at the end of our, sort of in midway in our career, we actually took a little sidebar and auditioned, and we both were in the Broadway production of Seven Brides and Seven Brothers.
And what year would that have been?
That opened in '82.
Okay. How long was that run?
It was a longer run pre-Broadway. It was a short run on Broadway.
Okay. And they made a movie out of it too.
Prior, yeah, in the 50s.
Prior. The movie was old. Yeah, before.
Yes.
Okay.
But ironically, right after that, I auditioned it and was very fortunate to be in a Broadway show called On Your Toes, which ran for 1.5 years, by the way, and won a Tony.
On Your Toes sounds like it's got a lot of dancing in it.
It does.
Okay.
It was Best Revival in '83, '84, and it was a 1936 musical.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and Ray Bolger, Scarecrow, right, from The Wizard of Oz, he was the lead in that 36 production. A lot of other famous people at the time. Then it was revived. Ironically, the director of the revival, I think your audience would enjoy this, was a gentleman by the name of George Abbott. And I advise people to Google George Abbott. He had over a 50, 60-year career as a director, writer on Broadway. And he was 96 when he directed us.
Holy Toledo.
So you never stop. You never stop, friends. He was 96 years old because he was the original director of the 1936 musical.
Wow.
And then he revived it, won a Tony for Best Revival.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
96.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
that's fantastic.
Lived to 107.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lived out 3 wives, and his 4th wife was just a young one at 59 when he married her.
Golly. So
there you have it. From there, we were offered a job down south to direct a ballet company together. We had in the oven a beautiful little baby who's now 38 years old.
That's your oldest.
And so we knew things were going to be a little different than the two of us. And so we took the job and directed a company called Montgomery Ballet in Montgomery, Alabama. Did that for 11 years. And then when my daughter was becoming a tween, we really wanted to focus in those years of being there more for her. I was still dancing at the time. I was directing, choreographing, also getting into the CEO line of fundraising. So we job searched, and I ended up coming to Indianapolis to open Pike Performing Arts Center.
You're kidding me.
No.
You're not going to believe this, but my wife was involved with Indianapolis Day Nursery.
Oh, sure.
And they did Cause for Applause.
Yes.
Okay. And they did it at Warren, and they did it at Pike once or twice.
They did.
Right?
They brought in Music Man when I was there.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So ran that hall, brought in Broadway level shows, rented to the community, served the academic community in Pike Township. And that was for 11 years. And then one of my renters, the Indianapolis Children's Choir.
They were renting.
They were renting the hall for performance.
Okay.
And I became a board member. They asked if I would serve on their board. And 6 years later, they were in search for an executive director. And they were in the throngs of bringing in a new dual reporting with Henry Leck, the founder of the artistic director. So there were two leaders then.
Now, when was the children's choir founded?
That was founded in '86.
Okay, so it's a fairly new organization then.
Yeah, at that time, and it was founded, by the way, sidebar, as part of the Pan Am Games.
1987 Pan Am Games. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that to be part of that and to receive some grant funding from Lilly Endowment, you had to be a 501c3 nonprofit. So that's when Henry turned in this group of singers into a nonprofit organization.
Now that is some Indianapolis. This is what I like about doing this show. You find out stuff you never would have known.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
We attended the Pan Am Games. I knew about the children's choir. I didn't know the connection though.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I'll give the people a little more about that. So there's the wonderful 80-plus-year-old Indianapolis Symphonic Choir. In fact, fellow Rotarian Liam Bonner.
And he's been on the show before.
Okay. So the Symphonic Choir, Henry was a member of that choir, and their board chair at the time said, hey, because Henry wanted to get this nonprofit status for funding for the Pan Am Games, but he wasn't a nonprofit. So to receive it, the Indianapolis Symphonic Choir became what was stood for them, and then the money was able to be given to the Symphonic Choir to be given to the Children's Choir while they were waiting for their nonprofit status.
And of course, the Symphonic Choir is looking at the Children's Choir as a feeder.
Well, of course, yes, and they are.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Children's Choir alum who they did it through their young years. They're business folk. They're here in town, but they love to sing, and that's their outlet.
That is fascinating.
Yeah,
that's
isn't that
really
great?
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So you were with the children's choir from when to when?
I was there from '07 until 2001.
And so 14 years. And how many kids was the children's choir serving?
Okay, at the time when I left, we had grown from '07 until I left, serving 1,800 children to serving 5,000 children, from preschool. In fact, our byline was we created all kinds of levels, 18-month-olds to 18-year-olds.
Okay.
We had a very special class, a very special faculty member who dealt with early childhood, and there was a bonding class for the 18-month-olds and their parents. And it was a great experience, and it's now over 35 years young, the Indianapolis Children's Choir.
Fantastic.
From there,
why did you leave the children's choir to go to the ballet?
Okay.
If you feel comfortable with that.
Not at all. In fact, when Henry retired, we opened up a 5-year strategic plan with the new artistic director, Joshua Petty, who was a protege of Henry's. He was a Butler grad, went to Butler, studied under Henry, and so we opened up this strategic plan. And the thing is, Danny, when I took the job, I definitely wanted to give an organization as executive director at least 7 good years. You're not going to establish a lot unless you can add time to it.
Yeah.
But the children's choir, it wasn't my art. I sing, but it's professional children's voices was just not my art. But it really worked well because we're a dual, and Henry, he had that down pat, right? My job, and the same with the Indianapolis Ballet, is to support the art. So
you're a fundraiser.
I'm everything. Okay. Yes. Okay. I am an impresario. I am a fundraiser, Danny, right? And I build relationships. I build the profile of an organization, and of course, board engagement, community engagement.
Yep.
But anyhow, at this strategic planning session out at Roche, Roche has this gorgeous new conference center, by the way, if people want to visit it. But we were going through this 5-year strategic plan, and we were talking about different levels, and I said, well, you may want to put in there the succession of the executive director. Dead silence. And I said, I'm not going anywhere, but in 5 years.
We need to think this,
And I told him why. I said, when I took the job, again, my background is theater and dance. And I said, I just know that it would have been after 15, 16 years, I just knew I would be wanting to get back to my roots. And so we laid out this plan, and then what we called, when it was time, when we said, yeah, we'll light the fuse, but at least the plan was in place.
That's really forward thinking,
yeah.
And they worked with you on it. That's
absolutely.
Cool.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, and we had just finished that with Henry, believe it or not. On the 25th anniversary, he was feeling like he might want to retire. Then he kind of had a rejuvenated spark for 5 more years, went to 30 years. But we had in place for Henry's succession. And it was very open. In fact, our funders really appreciated the fact, in all our grants, we talked about Henry moving on. And
you
why?
Communicated with them, and they were in the loop, and that's the way you do it.
Yeah, it is, and it gave them the confidence that the organization knew where they were heading,
okay,
and that those funders would want to continue to support.
So you joined the ballet fairly recently.
Yeah, I did, in April of 2001. It's a little over a year.
2021.
21. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2021. So right in the throes of
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now tell us about the ballet and everything. How many people are involved, and
sure.
when you have your fundraisers and so on and so forth.
Sure, absolutely. We the Indianapolis Ballet is now entering its 6th season as a professional ballet company.
Well, it's fairly new.
Fairly new. The organization, founded by Victoria Lyris, she's our current artistic director and founder. It's now in its 17th season. So Victoria has just a phenomenal background in the classical ballet world, and she grew up in New York. And some people may be familiar with the name of George Balanchine, who we consider the father of American dance, and he founded New York City Ballet, one of the major companies in the world. And then that training ground, the New York City School of Ballet, American Ballet, Vicki was a student there. And so she grew up around greatness. She was a principal dancer with Pennsylvania Ballet, and moved to Indianapolis. She had a young son. And ironically, I sometimes talk about building a company from below the ground up, and I'll tell you why. There was a professional ballet company in town for decades. And unfortunately, in 2005, that company had to go bankrupt.
I think I vaguely remember hearing about that.
So there was a void in this city of professional ballet for over 10 years. And Vicki was just at a point where she said, I want to try to revive this. Now, she comes from the philosophy where George Balanchine started with a school of ballet. He started, so his own training began, his way of thinking, his way of executing the art. And so she founded Indianapolis School of Ballet. And that piece of the organization is going in its 17th year. So from there was to birth a professional ballet company, and in 2018, in January 2018, the professional ballet company was grown. So now we have over 20 professional dancers that work and breathe here in Indianapolis.
They all live here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And it's very similar to the IRT, if you will, in that they have resident actors that live here for their season.
For maybe just a year.
Maybe just a year.
Yeah.
Some come in per show, but these dancers are here for the year. Some dancers have been here for all 6 years. So
where do you perform all over the place, or in one place? Or?
We perform primarily in 2 locations. So we actually have a relationship with Newfields at the Toby Theater. Mm-hmm. And so at the Toby, we are what we call in residence there.
For the uninitiated,
sure.
You better tell them what Newfields is.
Sure. So Newfields is the rebranded Indianapolis Museum of Art, which encompasses the whole grounds, the gardens, the park, the art park, and then the Indianapolis Museum of Art is now within the branding of Newfields.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the Tobias Theater, which used to house for many, many decades the Civic Theater.
I've been to the Civic Theater there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we are in residence there, and what we do is what we call our repertory nights, or our concert evenings, are all at the Toby Theater. Counter to that, the annual Nutcracker, huge production, draws in thousands and thousands and thousands.
Well, let me take a whack at this.
Yeah.
Is that at the Circle Theater?
No, it's not at the Circle
No.
Theater. There's a reason it's not, mainly because of the construction of the stage with the orchestra and its shell and you know.
It has to be a certain way.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
And so we're at the Old National Center, the Murrah,
Okay.
and we're there in December, and the audiences are huge. Of course, over COVID, everything struggled and a lot of things were virtual, but we came out of that this past year. I sort of was there to help bring the company out. Started at 30% at the Toby Theater when I first came. Everyone's masked. Then it went to 70%, and then to 100.
Okay.
But when we went to Nutcracker, the people came out again in the thousands.
People were ready to come out.
They were, and
For sure.
plus to see any art form at that high professional level, it is so inspiring. These dancers are absolutely great. Vicky's put together. We come back in. Right now, we're currently performing at Fringe. So your listeners pick up the Fringe schedule, and we're performing there right now with some very appropriate fringy artwork, sort of ballet beyond ballet, what you might think.
Well, tell people what Fringe is.
So Indy Fringe is happens every year, and it's a collection of artists, poets, dance, theater, film, and it kind of takes over a large part of downtown Indianapolis in all sorts of venues.
So in a way, it's like a convention. coming to town.
It is kind of
Yeah.
like a convention.
Yeah.
That's right. And
you know how many people that brings in?
I don't know those specific numbers, but also it's a lot of artists. And again, it can be from a children's puppeteer to stand-up comedians, theater pieces, again, dance, music, and they perform in some of the formal theaters downtown, but they also perform, in just a building that's converted into a performing space. And it just adds a lot of activity to downtown Indianapolis.
Does the ballet company travel anywhere?
We are going to be designing a touring program. Presenters, what we call presenters, who bring company, they just weren't presenting, and a lot still aren't. They're just not bringing in, especially large productions, because of the cost. And a ballet company is, it's a lot of people.
I would think so.
So it's a high ticket, but we're in conversations now with organizations. In fact, your alma mater, by the way, Notre Dame, is that?
No.
No, Xavier.
Yes.
Xavier.
Please.
Xavier, which is not Xavier.
That's right. We've
Yes.
had that conversation.
We did have that conversation. Sorry, but Notre Dame, right before the pandemic, the company did tour up to Notre Dame. And just had a great reception up there. The audience came out, the dancers, it was new, fresh. The company was maybe a year old, and
it was nearby, so it wasn't all that expensive.
correct,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
helped.
And they do have the funding. Their arts program that brings in programming
sure.
is
Yes.
well funded. So we're looking to rebuild that as well, and then take the company out.
Which leads to the next question, which is, how do you guys raise money aside from tickets sales, which is obvious, and how do people access finding out what shows are going on, what performances, and so on and so forth? So
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Yeah. So we're here at, I'll back into that. So we're here at Fringe. We open our season formally at the Toby at the third week in September with a great evening of George Balanchine works. They're great, wonderful ballets that have been preserved. You have to be sort of blessed by the Balanchine Trust to present these works. This company is one of only a few in the United States.
Very good.
So we have a great full season. I invite people to go to indyballet.org. The full season is listed. That happens to be our current flyer.
Here it is.
Yes.
This is indyballet.org. Okay.
Yeah,
Very good. And there it is.
There it is. We've got a very, very full roster. We're closing with Midsummer Night's Dream. We have Sleeping Beauty. We also have evenings that what we call our repertory evenings, which are just like a variety of choreographic pieces. It's just a grand season. And the dancers that we've hired for this season are absolutely divine. So people will always have a good time. And the great thing about dance is, you don't have to know a specific language. the language is the movement, right? You don't have to speak English, you don't have to speak Spanish, you don't have to speak French, you don't have to, you just go and sit and you can take it in however you interpret it. It's a great art form to be in front of, especially at the professional level. But to keep that operation going, our building model.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's important. So like any large professional nonprofit, you've got several resources, certainly the philanthropy piece, which does include fundraising, sort of like a gala, whether it's golf tournaments, whether it's those fundraising, but also individual donors who believe in what the work that you're doing. They're a huge part. Grant funders, both locally and nationally, are part of our funding pool. Matching gifts programs from employers, which are very generous. And then our ticket sales are a large portion of what we do. And so we invite people to be a part of the audience.
Do you have a lesser cost for children?
We do. We have discounts for students, for seniors, for military, first responders. There's all kinds of ways to access the professional ballet.
IndyBallet.org.
Check it out.
We'll tell you all of that.
And the website's great. You'd be inspired just to see what you see. And then when I mentioned about the School of Ballet, the Indianapolis School of Ballet, that's a funding source as well. So we have nearly 200 students that come to downtown Indianapolis to study and train at the school.
And they pay for that.
And they pay for that.
Okay.
The majority pay. We actually have a really strong scholarship program that we bring in for families or children of need.
Great.
Because sometimes the talent is there, but getting that student, the opportunities is might not be there.
Well, what about your fundraisers? Do you have any coming up before the end of the year?
We do. So on February 4th is our major gala. It's called Ballet and Cabernet. And we perform that and hold that evening at the Cabaret Theater downtown.
Okay. Okay.
And it's a great space.
IRT used to be there back in the day.
Well, IRT used to be at the Athenaeum.
Right, and that's different?
It is.
Oh.
So well, that's okay. It's the learning process here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the Cabaret Theater for a long time. The Cabaret Theater now has moved, and it's in conjunction with the Arts Council of Indianapolis on Pennsylvania Avenue, around 900 block.
Yeah.
And it is a nationally recognized true cabaret where you go in to listen to these gorgeous singers, Broadway fame. You're at these tables with drinks, and it's a very interesting evening.
Okay. Well, back to your fundraiser in February.
Yeah. Fundraiser in February, Ballet and Cabernet. Again, that'll start to be announced on the website, but it's our major gala.
Well, IndianapolisBallet.org.
Mm-hmm.
You got another minute. What do you want to tell folks?
Well, we just finished, by the way, a small fundraiser back in July. It was called Tutu Trivia. Tutu. Tutu. Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes.
Good. And it's a great trivia evening, and it's just a fun night out at Daniel's Winery. Had a great time, and that'll come around again next July too. But the main thing is for people to understand that Indianapolis Ballet is here for you. We're here for the community and people that support the ballet. By contributing to the ballet, we're able to make our contribution back to the city.
Well, great. Don Steffy with the Indianapolis Ballet and the Indianapolis Rotary, thanks for being here. 3 o'clock Monday is when these episodes go up. Next week's guest will be Wally Brandt of Indiana Oxygen and a fellow Rotarian. See you all then.
Thank you.